Hey everybody, I'm Tommy and you are on the Love Boat. What's happening? Hope you are having a decent day. You know what, people? This is a show that more people ought to see, but they won't. And that's the nature of the algorithm, and that's the nature of the big red button. I did a show on election integrity. If I did a show where I said I'm going to abuse kittens and puppies, I would have gotten less view. The algorithm is not going to push anything where people talk about truth. And if I sound like a conspiracy theorist or whatever, I mean, I got less views on that video than I've gotten since I started doing this years ago when I used to get 15 people in my live chat. This is the nature of where we're at. The people who control information now control the world. So if you've been paying attention to the mayoral election in New York, there's a Muslim cat that was running. He is a socialist. He does not believe in prison. He does not believe in bail. There are a lot of things that this guy believes that are kind of terrifying when you look at the fact that this guy could be running one of the largest cities on earth. However, he got elected today, if you believe that. And I'm not going to make any friends with the algorithm, and I don't give two scats. I really don't. It's one of the beautiful things about where I live today. And I don't mean physically, although that helps too, but I simply don't care anymore. Let me tell you a little bit about this before we get rolling, right? Escape from New York Part 2 coming soon, says the mechanic. And you know what? If people don't escape, then, normally I would say, hey, you get what you voted for. But we don't know what they voted for, do we? Right? We simply don't. So let's go over some things. There is an NYCA report. They're suing Letitia James. If that name sounds familiar to you, it should. Let me tell you some stuff that happened in 2020, according to this lawsuit. Statewide discrepancies of 19,266 to 338,356 votes between official tallies and voter records. Right? This is a problem. Votes from irregular registrants, 740,396 votes by registrants with issues, duplicates, invalid addresses, post-deadline registrations, making outcomes uncertain in 42% of congressional districts, 38% of state assembly races, duplicate registrations. Are you ready? Because this one's a pisser. 2,427,827 illegal duplicates, 1,170,790 individuals with multiple IDs. But I told you the other day, multiple ID stuff doesn't happen, right? That's a myth. 0.00003. You probably didn't see that show because no one did. But they'll tell you that there is no such thing as voter fraud. Blank or invalid addresses, 51,000 registrants without addresses, 27,000 of them voted, no problem. Age-related issues, 19,712 under voting age or impossibly old to still be alive, which is kind of an issue, dead people voting. 2,255 of them voted, 27 with last vote before age 12. I'm sorry, what? But there's no fraud, people. This 11-year-old just voted. It was an accident. They thought, what the hell? I can vote. I'm 11. No fraud. Nothing to see here. But they want us to believe that this guy just got elected. Okay. Deceased voters, 1,488,251 purged registrations without dates, 1,000 purged before registration, 126 after the last vote. 30,000 of them didn't have dates on them, and those people voted. No date. We don't know how old you are. Don't worry about it. Well, it's New York. They're voting Democrat. We'll just count those rascals. Post-cutoff registration. There is a date at which point you can't register afterwards unless you're in New York. 27,639 registered after deadline, but they voted anyway. Nothing to see here, people. No such thing as voter fraud. Holiday registrations. 1,106,646 registered on federal holidays. 640,000 of them for the 2020 election and 365,737 voted. Ask AI if that's possible. Ask them to run models on that and see what the odds that many people chose to register on federal holidays when they know nobody could look at it. They stole the 2020 election, whether anybody wants to believe that or not. They did. But they'll tell you 0.000, keep carrying that zero out as long as you'd like to put a 3 on it, because the number doesn't matter anyway. Whether it's 6 zeros, 9 zeros, it's BS. You understand? All of it. Other issues: potential non-citizen voting, insufficient affidavit ballots to cure errors. Example, 7 for 204 no address voters in Steuben County. Here's where it gets kind of funny too. When I started doing research on this, they said you can trust the models, because if there's a spike of some kind, this is why you can get away with only counting 7% of the ballots by hand looking for fraud, because the algorithms will look for anomalies. It'll flag them, and then we'll know to look, right? Anomalies kind of like this, right? Because this is an odd one. Registration exceeds eligible population in 6 counties, right? Diane, thank you so much. I'm glad that you are still here. It's always fun to see people in green. Makes a world of difference to me. It really does. Let's talk about Erie. 145.48% of the population voted. Did you catch that? That means more than almost half over how many people were in that county voted. But this didn't get flagged. They didn't say, hey, this is a problem. Where's your friggin' algorithm? Where is your, we're going to figure this out. If there's anything that's kind of an irregularity, we'll catch it. Nassau County, 155.81%. This is 625,359 excess votes across 51 counties. Now, if you decide to add all of these up, you start with aggregate votes from illegal registrants, 740,396. Add the statewide voter mismatch range, it's a separate issue completely, of 19,266 up to 338,356 of a maximum. Do you see what the computers have done? Well, it could be 20,000 or it could be 355,000. We really can't figure it out. Well, that's a pretty big freaking difference, isn't it? That's the kind of crap that can swing an election, don't you think? But nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Compute the sum of 740,000 plus 19,000, and you get 759,626 as a minimum, and 1,078,752 as a maximum total. Thus, the total votes in question range from 759,000 to 1,078,000, and I've rounded those down, not up. This is a problem. This is a BS problem, right? Nobody's talking about it because there is no voter fraud. Just ask CNN. You can ask Fox too. They'll all tell you there's no voter fraud because you have to catch the people and prosecute them for them to become part of the statistics. And New York, under Letitia James, they're not prosecuting anybody. Anybody. So when the federal government came in and said, hey, we'd like to see the registration rolls to make sure that everything is copacetic, she said, no, we're not doing that for personal reasons, because the federal government will go after these people. She also opposes trying to find out if people are citizens before they vote, because they say, yeah, nothing to see here. There's already so many ways to keep these people from voting. We don't need anything else. We don't need ID. We don't need any of those. They can just sign an affidavit, and we'll catch them if they're lying. They walk out the door. They left no ID, right? They just leave. How do you catch somebody that you don't have an identification on? If I come in and go, hey, how you doing? My name is Rob, right? Rob Connor. Here's my vote. And I walk out the door. They go, that's not Rob Connor. We should prosecute that dude. Of course, we don't know who he is. His name is Rob Connor. We got nothing on him. So we throw it into the file of they didn't cheat. Do you see the problem? So when they tell you that Zohran Mondani won this thing, I wouldn't believe them if I were you. I simply wouldn't. This is like so many other elections that I promise you were absolutely poisoned. This guy is a danger to the United States of America, and most assuredly, he is a danger to New York. Now, I'm going to get all kinds of emails from people who say, well, you hate the guy because he's a Muslim. I hate the guy because he's a moron. For real. And I don't hate him. I hate his politics. I spent a lot of time in prison, you know, but for people to go, prison should be abolished, with all due respect, if you think prison should be abolished, you're an asshole, because the vast majority of people in prison ought to be there. If you were to kick them all out in one day and put them all to the streets, I don't think you can imagine what would happen to the crime rate, especially if they knew that if they got busted again, they wouldn't be going back to prison. Or if they got busted, we don't have anything to worry about because we're not going to ask you to bail out. There are examples in New York of a guy that robbed a bank, got sent to jail, got out, and robbed a bank again the same day. Shocker. If a person knows there is absolutely nothing to worry about if they get arrested, they might go out and do more crime again. If I were talking about Diddy, I'd have 75 to 125 people in here. The algorithm's going to bury this like they bury everything else. So if this ends up being a short video, people, it's because it's hard to get excited about something that no one's going to see. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not. This is something that I'm doing because I feel passionate about it. But no one's going to see it. And that's just kind of the way it goes, man. That sounds like the Purge movie. Not just for one day, but for 24/7, 365. I'm telling you, get ready, New York. You think this is ugly under Adams? Wait until you see what this moron does. For real. And by all accounts, they're going to say he's got a mandate, right? He beat Andrew Cuomo. He beat Silva. This is the guy that started the group that cleaned up the subways, right? The Angels. He started these people that went down and said, we're not going to allow crime to happen on the subway. Since New York doesn't seem to be doing anything about it, we'll do something about it. They wore red berets and they rode the subway, making sure that old people didn't get robbed or raped. Yeah, Curtis Silva, obviously a bad guy, you know? But we're going to believe, right? Because there is no election fraud. So whatever the swing is, whatever the number is that this guy won by, you're just going to have to believe that, right? Just like we believe every election. Because without belief in the election system, then what do you have as a country? 7% of the votes cast in the 2020 election were checked for fraud. But they will tell you that there was no fraud in that election because the computer models, they would catch everything else. They would catch it. We got nothing to worry about. Well, they caught it in New York, right? They found this. There's a lawsuit going on right now against New York and Letitia James. You think you're going to hear about it? It's going to be like my last video. You're not going to hear about it because Alphabet, right, the company that pays my check, they don't have a vested interest in you hearing about this. I swear to you on all that's holy, this is the truth. I check 5 different AI models on everything I do, and they keep every single thing I ever did. If I want to go back and go, Diddy case from 6 months ago or 5 months ago, pull up the conversation we had. They pull it up. If I say, pull up the conversations we had about election integrity, they go, yeah, we don't have that. Isn't that something? All 5 of them. All 5 of them. Today, I was looking up I wanted to find out the statistics I just gave you. I had to do it twice because I found it, got up, got something to drink, came back, and it was gone on all 5 models, right? Words like shadow banning will get your video blocked. But they're suppressing this because God forbid the United States of America realizes that it doesn't make a shit bit of difference who you vote for. They're going to decide who the president is. They're going to decide who the mayor is going to be. Now, are there states that they don't? Let me tell you how it works. This is pretty simple. And I don't care anymore. What do you think of that? I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. What you say. Here's how it works. 14 states you can vote without ID. All of them are Democratic states. In those states, 9 of them will give you a free ID. So why is this here? What's going on here? Because they want people to be able to vote who don't have a right to vote. Plain and simple. There are 14 states, they're not the same 14, who refuse to hand over voter rolls to the United States government, the federal government, to check to see whether or not there are dead people on there or whether people are cheating. Guess what? They're all Democrat states. Now, you can hate me if you're a Democrat. These are just facts. I'm not making this crap up. Research it. Why is it that one party doesn't want anybody checking on the elections? Why? Look at the states that didn't close at midnight. Look at the states that didn't close at midnight. Because if you have 85% of your votes counted by midnight, you're good. Of the states that didn't close at midnight, 2 of them in the 2020 election went for Trump. And they went for him by margins that were not questionable. But the states that went Democrat, we're talking about a handful of votes in the scheme of the large things. 8,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there. Easily cheated. Easily cheated. If you got nothing to hide, how come you go, no, we're not going to let you look to see if dead people are voting. We're not going to let you look to see if people who aren't born in this country and are legally here are allowed to vote. And I say born in this country because if you're born in this country, you can vote. I can vote from Ecuador in the next election. If I'm born in the United States, it doesn't matter where I live. I can vote from wherever I am. If you came to the country and got citizenship there, it's a slightly different process. But if states go, I'm not telling you who's on the voter rolls, there's only one reason you can do that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to go, yeah, no, this isn't right. And then when they tell you that 0.000, there's no such thing as widespread voter fraud, except for the Kennedy election, when just in Chicago, over 100,000 votes turned out to be fraudulent. Now, they called them on it immediately. But when did it show up? A decade and a half later. So all of the stuff that they say, we got nothing to worry about, you promise you people, just watch. 10 to 15 years from now, we're going to go, holy crap, they stole Pennsylvania. Holy crap, they stole Wisconsin. By then, the president that was in question is dead. The person that lost isn't around anymore. Or they're too damn afraid to even fight it. Richard Nixon could have gone, no, there's no way. We're taking this all the way to the Supreme Court. That's a scary thing to do when the last president got shot, multiple times from one location from two different angles, right? You start going, maybe not, right? Maybe not. If they'll whack a sitting president, how fast will they whack somebody that's just making waves? Anyone who questions election integrity is called a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. Pokemon says all the way down to aldermen, all the way down to whoever they want to cheat for, because you're not going to get caught, right? You're not going to get caught. If they pull me in, I vote as Johnny Scoville because he's locked up. And they call me and say, hey, man, you voted for your brother. And I go, oh, yeah, but that wasn't fraud. I didn't mean to do that. They go, okay. I'm not making this up. You have to admit that you were trying to deceive them in order to get prosecuted. And if you think I'm oversimplifying that, do some research. And don't do it with AI because AI is going to BS you. So ask AI all of the articles that have been written about it and then go read. But you will find out that the statistics are based on people who have been convicted. How did they get convicted? Quite simply, they admitted that they were doing fraud. God, I wish they did that with bank robbery. Right? Tommy, we have pictures of you in bank. I wasn't robbing the banks. I was just in there. My withdrawal slip got confused for I want all of the money handed over to me. And it was just one of those honest mistakes. In fact, there's no other crime on earth that you have to say, I did it in order to be convicted of. But unless it is heinously provable, you have to admit to it. What person's going to do that? And 7%? You check 7% of the ballots and then have the balls, to come out and go, no fraud. No fraud here, nothing to see. What about the 93% you didn't check? Well, they say, well, what we do is we take the 7%, we run that out, we check about how many things were screwed up, and then we multiply that by what the others would be based on different parts of the country, and the algorithm, that computer magic comes back. You've heard in elections when they say there is 95% certainty that the election is fair. That doesn't mean they checked all of the ballots. They mean that using their model, they come back and say the certainty of the model is 95%. It's hogwash. It means absolutely nothing. I'm 95% sure that a crapload of cheating took place in New York today in this election. What am I basing that on? Well, some of the stats that I just gave you. If counties have 150% of their population voting, let me give that to you one more time in really simple terms. There's 100 people in your town and 150 of them vote. Nothing to see here, folks. Absolutely nothing to see here. Speaking of nothing to see here, if this resonates with you, maybe share this, because I promise you, come back tomorrow and look at how many views this gets. This will be buried right underneath the video that I did that said, sorry, I'm not feeling well. I'll be back in 2 days, right around the same time. My ex-wife's cousin got arrested for bank robbery in California. The bank's cameras did not work, so they let him go. He said he only got a few $100. Guy was also a loser. Yeah, I'm not trying to do shows on telling people how to rob a bank, but what you say to the teller will determine how much money you get. The average bank robber does get less than $1,000. You need to figure out how to rob a bank, or you probably shouldn't rob one, because you're going to be looking at 5 years at a minimum, and $1,400 or $1,000 for a bank robbery that you're risking 5 years on is probably not a great idea. It's only going to become more uncertain. Like there's no other way for it to go in terms of elections. No? Well, here's the thing. If they keep, so AI, this is what will happen. The average American is going to go and say, what is the average voter fraud? And AI is going to say 0.00003. And well, the Brennan Center says this, and this center says that. They're not going to say to you, the way that we came up with those numbers are people that have been arrested and prosecuted. Here's the best analogy in the world for this. How many people came across the southern border with drugs? 4 tons. Okay, only 4 tons of dope came into the United States last year. Well, obviously, that's not the truth. In fact, if they caught 4 tons, then about 40 to 400 tons came in, depending on which statistic you believe. But here's what it comes down to. Voter fraud doesn't make people drop dead when it happens. Drug overdoses are pretty damn obvious, right? So no one's going to believe that there isn't a lot going on because people are dropping dead from it like this. So they kind of got to be honest. But with voter fraud, you don't see it. You don't see it, right? And if you say, wait a second, more people voted for Joe Biden than any other presidential candidate in history the year that he didn't campaign, that doesn't pass the smell test. They start yelling, tinfoil hat, QAnon, right? This person's crazy. And how often are you going to put up with that before you go, I think I'll just shut my pie hole, right? I think I'll just shut my pie hole and let them steal one election after another for the rest of the time that I'm on this planet. I don't blame people. I don't. I'm beating the crap out of my channel by doing comments on this because they're not just going to block this video. They're going to block the next one just to bitch slap me back into compliance. On the bright side, I literally could not care because I'll tell you something. Truth's got legs. Right? Even if no one wants to watch it or no one can watch it. The truth is the truth. And I've gotten a whole lot better. I've gotten a whole lot better at researching. And it takes a while, man. It really takes a while. But I'm telling you right now, the odds that that election in New York doesn't have hundreds of thousands of tainted votes, why the hell wouldn't it? It's happened in every other election, right? It has. Unless you just believe that all of these are accidents, because that's what they tell you. Well, these are anomalies based on people who made mistakes. You're 130 years old and you're voting? Now you're dead. A 130-year-old didn't accidentally vote. Some ass cast a vote for them. You're 11 years old and you accidentally filled out a ballot on a holiday and mailed it in? Does that pass the smell test to you? Put a 2 in the chat if you think that they're not stealing elections. Put a 3 in the chat if you think they are. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. None of these things make sense. 2 million votes. You ever heard the expression? There are 8 million people in the in the dangerous city, or what was it? I can't remember. It used to be a radio show. There are 8 million stories in the big city. 8 million stories. About 8 to 10 million people in New York, and 2 million votes or voter registrations are in question. 2 million out of 8. I was told there'd be no math, but that ain't 0.0003. Right? Let go of my hand. Right? You live in Langley? Langley? Whitby Island, girl. You got to live in Seattle, don't you? Or very close to it? Gotta be. Or that's where you're from and you can live wherever. But people say Langley and my pulse stats to quicken. Right? I don't trust the United States of America, man. I don't. It's not going to make my channel bigger. I promise you that. And I don't care. I really don't. I don't care. Right? That's right. Pokemon says, let go of my ego. That's exactly what I meant. Drop the ego. 150% of Nassau County voted, and that magic computer they keep telling us is going to spot all these anomalies didn't spot that one. When I did the research, you know what it said? 3 to 4% spike will trigger a recount and alarm bells will go off, unless you're in New York. Now, give you some more statistics, which are fun. 90% of people who work in media in New York are Democrats. 9 out of 10. Think there's a lot of deep investigative journalism going on about what might be happening when 9 out of 10 of them lean in one direction? 86% cast votes for a Democrat in the last presidential election. Before that, I think it was 84. Right? So 8 out of 10. Now, does that mean they all voted for mayor for that? No, it doesn't. Right? You can't just go down ballot and go, that's just the way they're going to vote. New York's messed up. And most people think that abolishing bail has made stuff really, really bad. right? Off the coast of Washington. There you go. A lot of people have a problem with this, right? Right? A lot of people don't care. You see, a lot of people just go through the day and they do what they do. And I'm not mad at anybody that does that. I'm really not. I'm not mad at you for doing that. Some of this just seems like it's bigger than all of us. What can we do about it? Well, you can all start screaming. You can all start talking about this. Write to your congressman and say, how is it that we don't have a federal election system? The federal government doesn't determine what the 50 states should do. Wrap your dome around that. Every state can make their own rules. So states that give away IDs for free can say it's racist to ask somebody for an ID. That is the most racist statement in the world. What are you saying? That non-whites are too stupid to get an ID? Well, honestly, what does that mean? You're not saying they can't afford it. You give away IDs. Can't afford to get down there to get a free ID? Bull crap. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if we're talking about people that aren't making enough money, they're probably on government assistance, which they're not cashing checks for without an ID. It's just a way to steal an election. And if you don't see that, get a tack hammer and smack yourself in the head with it. I mean it, because you're no longer among the critical thinkers. I love stats. I think New York City will end up two-party criminals and willing victims. You know what? There was a time in New York City, right, where somebody went in and said, we're going to go to really high crime areas, and if somebody walks by and everything they got on is red, or the next guy that comes on and everything they're wearing is blue, we're going to assume that person might be gang involved, and we're going to do what's called stop and frisk. And the crime went and disappeared. See, it was a different concept. They said, we're not going to go after murderers. We're going to go after guys that break windows. We're going to go after guys who graffiti, because it will go all the way up the chain and stuff will stop and the murder rate will go down. And people went, that's ridiculous. And the murder rate went down. Stop and frisk found people carrying guns. And they said, it's racist. You're targeting people who are of a specific race. Well, if they happen to be Bloods or Crips, what are you going to do? Well, we can't go after them because they're of a specific race, and that makes us racist. This kind of nonlinear thinking destroys cities. Look at Seattle. Seattle was an absolute gem of the U.S. As a public speaker, it was my favorite city to go to. It was just amazing. You'd get there, and it was just an oasis. Now I'd rather be in Beirut, 1984, than in Seattle. People will take off on that. And you know what? Blow me where the pamper sits. Sorry, but you know something? I'm so tired. I have no intention whatsoever of pulling back, pulling punches. Let them bury the video. For real, let them bury the video. I said Seattle, and 7 people dropped off of my chat. Critical thinkers, have a nice day. Have a nice day. Peaceful protests. Peaceful protests. Like the George Floyd riots, right? George Floyd was a criminal. Not making any friends with that, but guess what? He was. He was a criminal. They've got streets named after him. They've got statues in parks, right? This was a guy that had a worse record than I did, right? No one should ever put up a statue of me. No matter what happens for the rest of my time on earth, there shouldn't be a Tommy Scoville statue anymore. There's not. What George Floyd should have done was live the rest of his life the best he could and hopefully made up for some of the stuff that he did. You know why he was in the back of that police car? Because he was black, Tommy. No, because he had just passed a fake $20 bill. That's why. And if you look at the drug screen on him, they didn't test for nitazines, didn't test for it, didn't test for 6 MAM, but there are people sitting in prison, right? You didn't test for heroin? He was a heroin addict. You didn't test his blood for heroin. You realize that it takes 6 hours, right? Everything gets transferred to morphine. So they said, yeah, he had a lot of morphine in his system, nothing else. BS, you didn't test. You didn't test. He could have had enough nitazines in there to kill a small army, but it doesn't show up on the regular test. And I've been talking about nits, what they call them, for how long? Way before those riots. And then you got people on CNN going, we're at another peaceful protest, and the entire place is burning behind them. I'm sorry, people. Critical thinking's dead. Not here. You guys are fantastic. But I'm talking to the people who should see this video and will never see it. But it is what it is. Yeah? It is what it is. All right, people. I'm going to take off before I get so out of control that I offend half my audience. Between now and the next time I see you, do me a favor. Be kinder than I am. Honestly, you know, I'm not Charlie Kirk. I'm an ex-convict who sees BS and calls it out. And it doesn't make me popular, certainly not with the algorithm, and certainly not with the shitty big red button, right? Propaganda machine that I happen to use to make a living. So probably the most tolerant of the rest of them. I don't have to sell my soul like if I use that and let them look through every single thing on my phone and computer, right? Look at the pictures of my kids and everything else. I think I'll pass. But the big red button, people, it promotes hate. It promotes violence. It sure as hell doesn't promote honesty. So talk to people. Look at content. Do me a favor. It's 52 of you. I hope all 52 of you hit the like button. It's not going to help in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you the truth. I hope all 54 of you leave a comment. In fact, leave 2. It isn't going to help, but it sure as hell will prove the point. Because if you look at a video that's got 54 people that watched it and every one of them left a comment and every one of them put a thumbs up, theoretically, the algorithm should be shoving it down the throat of everybody. That doesn't happen. It kind of proves the point. It's kind of all I'm hoping for. Hopefully, I will see all of you tomorrow night. Maybe I'll talk about something fun or funny. Can't make any promises. The world isn't all that funny right now to me. If it's funny to you, God bless you, man. For real. It's probably a lot more fun if you're unaware of half the stuff I'm talking about. It'd be a better world if you didn't know you were getting a screw job at every turn. From what I've heard, people who come to America illegally can even register to any government assistance so that they shouldn't be able to vote in American elections. Look, there are places in other countries with billboards out in front of the offices that say, we'll teach you how to get food stamps as soon as you cross the border illegally. Not making this up. Done shows on it before. You don't think any of them are voting? Because if you look at the statistics, none of them voted. They caught 8 or something, in the last election. 8. I'm sure that's realistic, right? I mean, after all, we did check all 7% of the votes that came in. What could go wrong? All right, people, I will see you on the next one. I'm Tommy. I should probably be kinder. It is what it is. We'll see you on the next one. God bless.